What's up? This is Johnny with Bloodoflions. Our new single, Built for the Moment, just came out on platforms everywhere. Go give it a listen, and you are listening to John the Ninja podcast.
Character. Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the dojo. You know it's the John the Ninja Studios. Let me tell you, when I get interviews, sometimes it's as easy as cake. You look at the PR release, you go back and see other interviews, and then other times you have a situation like when I was at the radio station at WMMR. Zach, who I won't mention the band's name, shined up, came to visit, and Pierre asked me to look up some information about a solo gig, and I was looking, I was like, I can't find anything. That's the challenge I like. And this is the challenge I have with this gentleman. And you know why it's so challenging? Because he has so much history, so much lore. He's basically Marvel Comics for music. Yet somehow he's still enshrouded in shadows. But I'll tell you this, if you want to show the man your respect and gratitude, dress in red, because that is a theme in every aspect of his music career that keeps on showing up. And you can't see my red shorts, my red Converse, but you got my red shirt. So let me tell you a little bit about this man, because he is one of the top tier musicians and is beloved in Colorado, especially in the rock scene. And I tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, he's a lover of performers. Johnny Cash, Boyz II Men, Alan Jackson, Terry Clark. Now, country may be his roots, but it was his cousin who gave him a STP album, Core, may I mention, that made him find his niche, found that feeling that we all get excited listening to heavy metal and rock and roll. And that's where he went down the rabbit hole, eventually finding Nirvana and other acts. But he fell in love with it so much that he had to learn to sing. He had to learn to play guitar. And he came up with his own band, the very famous Novous Folium. It's Latin, guys. You can look it up. And he started his own band. And when I say he toured with some of the greatest in music, he really did. But after years of extensive touring, after having to man the handle and actually be the touring manager, which is way more stressful than the actual band manager. I'll explain that later. He had to step away for reasons and including the fact that he got away from the fun, but he did not waste his time. A 12-year delay was none at all because he ended up working for the school system, ended up going from a single parent to a married man raising a family and living our dreams. And he's also a bodybuilder. He's a hell of a painter, but something was lingering. Something was still missing. And it was his mentor 12 years later asking him to join him to do a country album. And he was a little apprehensive, but entertaining it. But it was his mentor's son who gave him prophetic. Now, I believe the Lord, and I don't judge here. It's whatever you believe. But there's something to be said when the universe sends something your way. I quote this statement, my friend, God is going to find a way to make you do music, whether you want to or not. Now, at the time, little did he know it would be such a stretch to get into the music, but he did. And overcoming so many trials, the man has returned with something fiery and something that's got the blood running. It's called Blood of Lions. And the man I speak of is Jonathan Lee. The band's goal is to convey the raw, unfiltered truth of life through music. The songs tackle battles we face every day, victories we gain, and even the current struggles that we just can't seem to get over, but we will plow through them. Just like the line, the songs are dominant and fearless, and I guarantee you guys, when you hear it, you're gonna feel like it was just written for you. The first single, Built for the Moment, has been featured in over 20 major market radio stations, and I can't even list the amount of Spotify playlists, mainly metal and rock, because that's what we love here. But it's just truly mind-boggling the amount of success they have had with such a small radio campaign. It is truly something to behold. So here to talk about Blood of Lions, ladies and gentlemen, he goes by Johnny. I'm gonna call him Mr. Jonathan Lee. Sir, how are you?
I am fantastic, bro. That was quite the intro, my friend.
Thank you, thank you. It was so much research, man. I thoroughly enjoyed digging and actually, earning my keep to have your presence on the podcast. For thank you for coming. I do know that you are also a fan of sports, and you got two going on for you. You got the Denver Nuggets, and you also got your boys in the NHL. Are you going to the game tonight for the Nuggets?
I'm not going to the game. I was actually, fun fact, a season ticket holder for many, many years, about 15 rows up from the court, right behind the visitors' bench. So, your boy was getting loud and hollering. So it was, and we were there for every game. I got to treat my family to game one of the NBA Finals and got to go to game two. And we were there when they won the championship. So it was pretty special.
Man, that is such a blessing, man. That's
Yeah.
the type of life I want. I want to give my friends those moments. It's just that it's something about sports is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poetry of suffering, trying to win. But man, I gotta ask because I'm very curious. You're initially from California. You're in
Yes,
Denver
sir.
now. Shout out to my boys Pathos and Logos. And the missus is from Philly. She an Eagle fan. So now I got to know who do you align with? Who's your team? Because I've caught you in other jerseys, but I've caught you in the Eagle green. So we gotta discuss this right now, being a podcast out of Philadelphia, sir.
Well, you have a friend in me. I I am a thorough supporter of my family. My wife's family is fantastic. I love Philly. I had my bachelor party there. We got married there. I will root for my Broncos, hands down, every day of the week. But you know what? If the Broncos aren't playing the Eagles, it's all about the Eagles. So, man, I've gotten razzed so hard by my buddies out here too. They're like, "Bro, you can't wear an Eagles jersey." And I'm like, "Look, this is 2 days after my wedding, and I'm with my new father-in-law. I'm wearing an Eagles jersey at the Eagles game."
And principal, don't feel bad. I'm an Eagle and a Cowboy.
Woo!
Twisted family dynamics. Half of the families are Eagle, half of the family Cowboys. We actually had a family member play for the Eagles back in the 50s. And
Wow.
of course, Terrell Owens is my favorite football player. So, it's convoluted. I get it all the time. I understand, man.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so, out of curiosity, what was the initial move to Colorado? Because again, back in Cali, and you've alluded, no, excuse me, alluded is the wrong word. You've spoken about your upbringing, but I never really caught what brought you to Colorado. Was it the music scene? Was it other circumstances?
It was honestly escaping the cycle of life that I had gotten myself caught up in out there. I had been in a band that was pretty successful out there called Stick Shift Limo. At the time, was pretty well connected in the industry. Jason Wade was my worship leader. He was the lead singer of Lifehouse that they signed to become Lifehouse instead of a worship band. I mean, just had a really nice community of connection of music. But with that, even in the Christian world, because we were a Christian band, comes a lot of temptation and a lot of opportunity to fall pretty easily. So I fell into the party scene and got myself so caught up in it that I was literally sleeping on a couch with my best friends, didn't even have a bedroom, was paying rent, and got kicked out of the band I was in because I was smoking too much weed as a singer. That was the reasoning behind that, and absolute I would say they had absolute reason to kick me out at the time. I was a really really good kid who did nothing up to that point, but college after my first year, I just let loose. It was something that got a hold of me. So I called my dad and I was like, look, I either need some help or I need to move out of this house and get my own space because my drummer was who I was partying with. He's not a bad guy, but he introduced me to the party scene, and I got caught up in it. So I decided to look for about a month or two because he gave me an ultimatum. You can find a place in 2 months or you're moving to Colorado. And couldn't find a place that I could afford. So I decided to just change the scenery, really give myself a fresh start in order to change my mind, change my perspective, and change my trajectory in life.
No, I do find it very ironic that you moved out to a state where weed is legal and everybody has their own struggles. Some people, I know Christians that are like, whatever, man, smoke your weed, we good. I love 420 culture. I just don't do it or can't legally, but that's a different story altogether. But, for you at that time, once you moved out to Colorado and were able to move your head, what was the game plan? Because a thing I keep on seeing is every step of your career just it gets a little bit harder every time. But then once it's cemented, once you deal with whatever you have to go through, all of a sudden the doors open up immediately. Was that what happened when you moved out to Colorado? It was about the time you created Novus Fulham. I'm sorry, I can't speak Latin too well. They're gonna kill me with a biblical studies degree, but uh,
Yeah, it was kind of wild. So I did jump into a band or two previously. I mean, when I first got out here, I was looking at some classifieds to see if there was anybody looking for singers. This is back in 2003, so classifieds were still a thing, folks. But I found a group that was looking for a singer in a city called Castle Rock. I didn't know how far away it was. I started going, and it was like 2 hours out in the middle of nowhere. That did not work out, and especially because of the drive. Um, Ended up finding a band in Longmont, Colorado, which is where I was living, and it worked out for about a year. Um, And then I was introduced by a karaoke DJ who I'd go and sing karaoke with every now and then to a band that he had seen in a battle of the bands. He said, "Hey man, you got to meet these guys. They're called Step Down. That was the original name of Novous Folium. They have a singer, but I think that he is willing to back up to just being a lead guitarist if you're willing to take the position. And I think you guys could do something special." So took them about 6 months to allow me to actually like introduce myself to their group because two of them were apprehensive, two of them were open. But one of the guys who was apprehensive came over to a buddy's house, heard me sing a song with him playing acoustic, and they said, "What the heck are we doing? Let's have you in the band." And off we went. Gosh, it was, I'd say 3, 4 months later, we were playing the Gothic Theater. I actually had a couple bands that were headhunting me, trying to get me to join their band instead, which was kind of wild. I'd never been appreciated as a singer. LA is a big city, and you're all fighting for the same spot, and there's tons of talent. So, and I'm not saying that I'm anything special as a singer. I love doing it. I've never loved my tone, but I like doing it, and I think I'm pretty decent. So, um, I just took off with it, and man, it was from that point when we played that Gothic show, everything else was like doors opening. But you're right. I mean, it, it's funny. I have a song coming out, not the next single, but the single after this is called New Devils. And it's all about new devils, baby. Because every time we want to level up in life, we have new devils that we got to battle and get through in order to see the success or the beauty on the other side of that. So, and that's just been a common theme in life.
And that's going to play into my questions about the band a little later because some of the lure of Satan being the lion ready to attack, and we have to go against, we have to deal with our demons. But you mentioned something that was a little awkward to me because I am not a singer. I've done classical training. I've been very fortunate to be around people. I have a voice. I enjoy my voice, but I know my range. I know there's certain bands I can sing, and there's certain I can't. There's a video at you a karaoke singing Sam Smith. And I'm sitting here like, I don't know, man. Maybe God put you in the church to get you with the gospel, to get you to the R&B. That was hitting, and the people would agree. So I wanted to kind of get the idea of how you developed your style, because even now, when I listen to old interviews of you, your voice was much higher. And now your voice speaking is a little deeper, but your voice vocally is still sustaining those notes. And I can't tell because it's not my body, but a singer can tell like, oh, that's straining the vocal, that's hurting a little bit more, that needs a little bit more oomph in that. So what was the development of your vocals? Why do you think rock was that perfect space for you to sing? Because you do play too. What about being the front man was so captivating?
Great question, bud. So my first experience with being captivated myself was with Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots, watching live performances on MTV and just going, "This guy is weird, bro." Like, I love the music, but man, he's dressing up in skirts and like has makeup on and he's singing through a megaphone sometimes. Like, but it just inspired me like to be myself and to go out there and try it because if somebody who was this awkward could make it happen, maybe I could, and so when I first started like playing and singing in church, I realized if I was going to do this in a rock world, because we were starting to write rock songs outside of that, me and some of the members of the worship team, I wanted to connect with the crowd. Jacoby Shaddix was a huge one for me. I went to Warp Tour the year that they premiered on Warp Tour, and I was just blown away by his performance and the way that he didn't captivate the crowd and just leave it there. He captivated and then connected and moved and left people changed. And I went, I want to do that. Like, I want to use stories from my life and my childhood to do the same thing he just did for me, you know? So yeah, that's what really got it for me.
You've mentioned the pressure behind that because rest in peace to Scott. Scott was a wildcat. I had the fortunate blessing to have been able to meet him. And man, that was an I've had my fair share of interesting interactions. As bad as he was personally, that was probably one of the smoothest, like normal rock star interactions I've ever had. Straightforward, not playing, not saying he's not gonna smile or joke with you, but I'm a man about my business. Let's get the business done. Work before play. And you've had the fortunate opportunity to give that type of joy to people. People, when your bands have disbanded, have come to you. It's like, nah, really, man. Like, this song saved me. This song helped me. And you mentioned it added a level of pressure, it added a level of you feeling like you let them down. And now with this new project, which isn't a project, it's a full-on band, people. That's poor language by me, P. I'm sorry, sir. Um, it's something where you've kind of come to grips of like, I have to do this for myself. Could you mention what that pressure was on you for performing? Because there's this pressure of I'm not good enough. That's the word is perfectionist mentality, but then there's another pressure when the world is on your shoulders. I could only assume how difficult it was when you were the band manager as well for one of your bands, because now you're not only having to worry about performing, making sure your vocals are well, staying healthy, but now you're taking care of everybody else's problems just like that. You're making sure everything's getting done, tour, merch, money, booking, everything is just another level of stress. How did you deal with those? How did you come to a place now where it's like, okay, this is for me, but I can still get things done?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Ironically, I was just talking to my guitar players last night about this issue, and it's something I still struggle with because of that situation and how it played out. Even now, I'm trying to handle everything myself and missing things because I couldn't rely on a lot of help from every member of the band. There were some that were really invested, right? But it took me having a conversation with them and saying, "Hey, I'm overwhelmed, man, and I want this thing to work. I know we're all excited that it's working and that we're getting to the levels that we are, but the bigger we get, the more that's on my plate." Um, and that pressure, I do believe, is what ended up causing our implosion. And it wasn't just my other members and issues with them. Like I got to a point where because of some of the pressure, the stress, the resentment that gets built up because of that stuff, I would kind of, it wasn't necessarily always like come out with energy or like yelling at people, but I would essentially just be very stern and be like, "Look, dude, you got to pull your head out of your ass in order to make this happen. Like, you can't just be living in fairy tale land. Like, you got to put some action behind your words." And I would tell people that, and that's blunt and that's harsh, even if it's truth, and it cuts people. And I think those paper cuts, even with the truth, or even times where maybe I had an outburst because I was so overwhelmed, to own my stuff was wearing on those guys. And for me, that was because I felt the wearing of the pressure and the added work and all the extra things I was doing and the lack of appreciation I felt for it. I think that was the biggest issue was I didn't mind doing all the work if I got a little bit of appreciation for it, but there wasn't a lot of it. One member really did appreciate it, and the other three, it was just really tough um, to hear anything but excitement after the show to go meet the fans and party. So it was and those guys aren't bad guys. It wasn't at that time we just weren't mature enough, brother. And I think even myself, I had to emotionally mature as a leader in order um, to be better this time around. And in that way, that means delegating. Leaders delegate very well. Bosses will tell people what to do, or they'll just do it themselves and they'll snap on people, and there's a big difference to me. And leadership delegates well and they lead by example. So I'm trying to lead by example in ways that I'm facing my crap and dealing with it and trying to get better at the things I'm not good at. One being delegating and being a better teammate so I can be the best version of myself for my bandmates. And we can have one hell of a ride without having, the troubles that I did in Novus.
And you've mentioned you've been incredibly blunt, and I appreciate it. You can cuss or say whatever you want on here, regardless of beliefs. But you straight out have said in other interviews you were dick. You've stated words that were much bluer than that as well. But it seems that you've also come to this realization where you were. I always see when it looks like somebody's really earnestly trying, sometimes their actions become at a necessity. It had to be done this way. And you've answered part of the question I was going to ask next, like how have you matured from that? But did you ever feel like you were in the right looking back on it? There's some situations where it happened, I apologized profusely, and then years later, it was like, no, I was right. I was in the right. I had exactly everything I needed for everyone else to say you did the right thing morally, subjectively, and there's this angst, this feeling of like it still could have been done better. Did you deal with that at the time? Have you come to grips with that?
100%. And I will say, I still feel like my delivery was the issue. Um, and I can own that because delivery with some of my intimate relationships, my wife and my kids, has been the issue. And I've worked drastically on that. And my wife would absolutely tell you that it's night and day. I mean, our relationship the last 3, 4 years is totally different than the first 3 to 4 years. And it's just because I recognized that a lot of the trauma that we go through in life was starting to surface in the ways that I was delivering things to people. Do I believe that I did what I did and I said what I said back then with absolute good intentions and the best intentions of everybody for the success of the band, so that we could all experience this dream of ours coming true? 100%. I will not deny that. There was no malice in it whatsoever. It was always trying to get the best out of people. But my delivery sucked in times. And you're right. You use some cutting words, or regardless of the truth, like you say somebody needs to pull their head out of their ass, like that's going to hurt them, regardless of it being the case where, like, yeah, you need to kind of wake up. I could have said it a lot nicer. And cursing at people's never going to get a great response. Those words are emotional words and they incite emotion. And I do use them because they are very colorful and they do express emotion. I do you know, curse every now and then when I am expressing things, but it's something that I think that's where the maturity comes in, and I can totally say that yeah, I do believe I was right in the direction I was trying to get us to go, but I don't believe I was right in my delivery and where I was as a leader in that, and it's because of some of my own shortcomings to truly delegate and truly communicate at that point. And boy, I tell you, it's been 12 years and I'm a totally different human being. And I look back at that and I'm like, I wish I could have been this person then, but they would have had to have been different human beings too. And that's the tough part, you know?
But you also mentioned like the dynamics of your relationships all around the family. So I posed this question in our pre-interview, and you did have to go with litigation with your last band. And it was an interesting ending. You said something that hurt me personally. It wasn't like, oh, you were attacking me, but you said the band breakup hurt worse than any romantic breakup. And I remember like I've had moments I've been cheated on, and then the guy found out he was being cheated on, and then we found out it was like four dudes in the mix. And then I've also had, I think, the most heartbreaking one where it was like true love, we both like each other, just can't. And that one was a very long process of like, yikes. Now, of course, the question is, did she really love me? Did she not? That's not the point here. It was the emotional reaction to it. So could you elaborate why the four-person unit hurt more than that romantic relationship of having a partner?
Yeah. I always put it this way to people because people that haven't been involved in a true like band um, relationship or community don't understand this. You get it once you're in it, and it's not to say they're lesser people or anything. It's just we don't know what we don't know, and when you enter into a relationship in a band, you truly are marrying four people, and you're choosing to marry essentially four people. Reason I say that is because this music is everybody in that band's baby. Everybody cares. Everybody is bringing this from the core of their spirit out and delivering their ideas in order to form one cohesive idea at the end of it that speaks to some truth or to some message that impacts people. And I truly believe that that's why everybody makes music. They want to have an impact. Even goofy songs, they want to impact people to, smile and laugh and feel great. So we all do it for the same reasons. Um, but uh, yeah, I mean, it's a marriage to me because you do every day of life with these guys, because in order to be successful in a band, you better know you're in a band. If somebody's talking to you, that person better know you're in a band within the first 30 to 60 seconds. Otherwise, it is not your passion and it is not what you want to do with your life. It's like and I've always been told that by people when you're promoting your businesses and stuff. Like, if people don't know what you do and what you're passionate about within the first, and maybe it's like a minute or two, I don't remember the exact time frame, but it's a really short period, then you're really not that passionate about it. And I get apprehensive telling people about what I do with music because I don't want to come off as arrogant or forcing it upon people. I really am doing it for different reasons this time around. But uh, I truly believe, coming back to the question, that's why it hurt so bad. I decided to marry, essentially, quote unquote, four of my best friends that I had built relationships, life. I mean, they had defended me from being jumped by guys that wanted to, like, that were obsessed with my girlfriend at the time. And this is after I'd had a kid and with her. And it's just like, there's a lot of weird stuff that went on, that these guys were involved deep in life with me, and it hurt. It was, I believe it was 8 years, maybe 10 years. I can't remember exactly. That we were like together, playing together, and doing literally everyday life together. We lived together, for crying out loud. Two of us did at the time, and then three of us did it. When we started to go on tour. So it was tough, man. I mean, we'd built this kind of empire of our band locally in Colorado that was starting to flourish nationally, and we were excited about the outcome, and it came crashing down. And I think you feel that when you're in a marriage too, like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this marriage. And you get married and you're excited, and then you're like, oh my God, marriage? This is what it's about. This is what it's like. I'm getting to know somebody on such an intimate level that they're scared of being exposed because nobody's ever seen them like this, and that's just the truth about marriage. Like, this stuff comes up in the first 3 to 5 years. And you know, and once you get into something and past that 3 to 5 year mark where you've been really doing life, like, you just expect to do it forever. And when I got that ripped away, like, it felt like the whole foundation of my life, my identity, my support system, my community was ripped away from me, especially with what happened after the litigation. I mean, after that, man, there are interviews that you can go and look up, and these guys did not speak kindly about me at all. I refused to do interviews because I wasn't going to throw them under the bus for some of the issues and stories. And, at this point, I don't have a problem talking about it because if these guys want to come back and combat that, that's fine. I have no problem being honest. And I always had an eyewitness with me because I was afraid after this, that after everything went down, that things were going to get a little sketchy. And they did. So that's what hurt too. It's like, my drummer was the godfather of my son. And he stood up and said, F you, I will never be in a band with you again, and screw your son too. That hurts. Like, wow, you're not even going to be there for my child who you said you would be there for. Okay. Wow. Okay, now I'm going to do some self-evaluation. What did I do wrong? And then when I go through it, I'm like, I know what I did wrong, delivery. And actually, that member, the drummer, has been one of the only ones that's come to me, my bass player as well, and said, hey man, I can acknowledge you were doing everything right for us and trying to do everything for the best interest of everybody in this band and make our dreams come true. Your delivery might have sucked, but we should have just bit our tongue and sucked it up because we were kind of being a-holes too. So, I appreciate that stuff, and I think that's also, I acknowledge my shortcomings to him, and I think that's where growth comes in. Like, when you're vulnerable enough to own your stuff, everybody grows, because it leaves somebody else feeling okay with being wrong and not being the best version of themselves. I think we all get scared of that stuff. So, yeah. And I'll tell you what, that litigation was not fun. It was not a fun process. And I felt like, again, everything, my identity, my son was on the cover of our albums. Novous Folium was the name I brought to the table to rename the band. The whole identity of wearing red on stage, to symbolize passion and love and like anger and energy, like just, fire. All the things that I like to present through music, and deliver through music, like these, just a raw emotion. Fire represents, the softness and the danger. So all of it was taken away, in songs that I wrote about my life, lyrics I wrote about my life. So all those pieces added up together is why I think that's probably the biggest heartbreak I've ever experienced, especially when you're about to have Cameron Strang and Warner Brother Records put some documents in front of you and see what life's going to be like after that.
And it's scary too, especially, man, I'm sorry that happened to you. Hold on, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's scary. Especially, I can't fathom being so mad at a friend or an enemy when I've made a commitment to a child. That it seems childish, but in the moment, like you said, if you're not in it, you can't understand it. And I think it's kind of, we give GNR a lot of crap for years, but now we're kind of like, yikes, what if Axel was crazy, or what if he was desperately trying to do what you were doing and save the band, just get to the next step? It's very, uh, there's a word, but I'm forgetting the actual word, but it's curtailing. It's blood curdling. There we go. Especially with litigation, everything is out there. Personal stuff too, like if you're married. But out of all of that, because we will get to the book, good sir, we're not letting that slide. But Blood of Lions, you came up with the name, and back to the Satan reference, Satan, and you got to deal with your demons. When Charlie Sheen said the tiger blood, I got tiger blood, and you were like, well, you know what? I'm a Leo. I've always been associated with tigers. I got lion's blood. When was that first time you had that connection? Somebody was like, man, you're like a lion, or you had that realization that a lion might be your spiritual animal. That was something that, spiritually, because of religion, but also for you personally, of like, this is how I identify.
The first time anybody ever kind of like threw that kind of energy or depiction of a persona at me was really after I started playing music. And I truly believe it's because, when I'm on stage, like it's a roar for me. Like it's unleashing all that stuff, all those demons I've battled in these songs. Like it's just unleashing them again. And so I think it was like in probably my early 20s when I really started having people kind of throw that at me, just here and there, random. But with my with my old band, when that Charlie Sheen thing came on, I really was like, all right, I'm going to take this kind of on. If people have said it, I'm going to take it on. And then me and my wife, we kind of have this lion and the butterfly um, thing that we label ourselves at. My wife is just the sweetest person in the world. And to piggyback off what you said earlier, she has absolutely changed my life and changed the man that I am. We are polar opposites in every way of life except for socialism, and socializing, I should say. And that is per personality test, per therapist, per counseling. I mean, man, everybody said we shouldn't work, but if we do, it's going to be beautiful. And it's changed my life. It's been beautiful. But we had to fight through a lot. So yeah,
Couples that work out together stay together. You and the missus were, I don't know if that's how you met, but that's what I assumed. I assumed because both of you, I don't know if you ever competed. I know she did, but I don't know if you competed in bodybuilding.
one time, yep, competed. Actually, what's ironic is we competed the same year, just months apart, at the same exact place, at different show that was held at the same exact place. So it was wild. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing too about our relationship. We were dancing around each other for so long, so many mutual friends that knew one another. I knew of her. I was like, man, if like I ever had a wife, I'd really like it to kind of be somebody like her. She's a believer, single mom who, excuse me, she's a believer. She's a single mom who just like is taking care of business. She's just got this spirit when you watched her videos and her promotional videos where you were like, dang, I want to know that girl. Like I want to be around her and just soak up that energy. And so, and I looked at her and I'm just like, she's so opposite of me, man. Like I'm so rigid and rough, and I've had, some of these things that have happened to me in life have taken root and really like hardened me in ways. And like she's such a soft, delicate butterfly. I was like, I want this person in my life. And so, yeah, that's kind of where that truly came from. I told her, I was like, you're like a butterfly, and she's like, well, you're like a lion. Like, when you're at church and you're singing, I feel like you're roaring. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what people say when I'm singing. So yeah, kind of wild. To piggyback on that, I had a vision one day. I was talking to a buddy of mine about our marriage, and we were in a rough time. We were approaching our marriage, and just really, really rough time in it. And I was kind of like curious if we were going to make it even to the wedding day. And I'm sitting there and I just blanked out. He said I blanked out for like a minute or so. And I had this vision, like kind of just went into this dreamland for a minute of me as a lion walking through, thick grass reeds. And I'm looking up and there's this butterfly flying above me. And I'm like trying to help it because it looks like it's kind of like needs a safe place to land, but there's nowhere to land. It's just grass. So I'm like trying to like reach up and grab it and help it, but I can't. And until I turn my paw up and take my claws away from it, and it lands safely on the soft pad of my lion paw. And I went, holy smokes, dude, like you've got to grow up and change your delivery and your direction in order for this relationship to be different too. And it was like, you are the lion, she is the butterfly, but you can still be the lion that she needs, and she'll be the butterfly you need. It was so wild, bro.
Oh man, yeah, a lot of us we have to go the hard way to get our answers from God. We got to get told like 3 times, and then we go to do it. He gonna stop us anyway. I got stories for you. Same situations. Like, should I? Should I not? I'll never forget. And I'm sorry, people. I know you've heard this a long time, but just for my brother here, man, I'll never forget. There was a girl, just friends. Very long story. Everyone go to Concert Resume, Foreigner. You can see that story in its entirety. Had to plug myself. But man, like just friends hanging out. I was like, you know what? Why not? I'm not dating to get laid. I'm not dating to marry. I'm just, she's thinks she's great. I don't know why. I prayed to God about it. I prayed to God about it. I was like, God, I had such a great time with this girl, wonderful friend. I'm gonna shoot my shot. Just wanted to say thank you. God, don't do it. Don't do it. I was like, what? Nah, I'm overthinking it. Because the thought pops up in your head. God talks to you a certain time. Sometimes you get the vision, sometimes you get the dreams. My affirmations usually come from people, or sometimes God does something for me that I know it's like, oh, I can't screw that up. Because I love coincidence. I don't, not every coincidence is God. So I love taking that idea of like God gives us the opportunity to grab life. But man, I'll
Yes.
never forget. He said no. I was like, I'm overthinking it. And then like minutes later, I saw somebody. I was like, hey, it's great to see you. I prayed for her, gave her a great prayer. I was like, oh, it's so good. God bless this woman. And then I was like, could you pray about this situation? Prayed everything but that. I was like, yo, you forgot to pray. He was like, oh, I forgot. Maybe God's God saying don't do it. I was like, no, don't you do that to me. But I digress, man. Beautiful. When you started listening to that music, that was your release from your house. That was your release from certain things that were bothersome. And I've found throughout the years, music has been my way of release, my way of comfort, my way to get away with whatever, especially if it's good emotions, bad emotions. That's somehow the darker the song, the closer to God I get. I don't understand it. Deny the Cross by Overkill is like my Jesus song. It's like God is real. It is a different level of euphoria that brings peace. It's not the peace of God, but I wanted to know musically when you were playing, how does it get you closer to God, and how does God communicate other than prophecy to you? Because that's a process a lot of people have to go through.
When I'm on stage, I oftentimes, this is going to sound weird, but I often don't even remember exactly where I was. It's literally like I'm in a different world. Like I'm being taken over by something. And I truly believe that's just like the Holy Spirit, man. It's the Spirit of God going, hey, I created you with this gift to do this. It's time for me to get up there and use you. And I think that's one thing that I just approach the stage every time before I get up there. With my bands, we huddle around, we say a little something, I'll say a little prayer, and then I just say, "Hey, God, use me however you need me tonight." Whatever that looks like. Sometimes I was so in touch with the crowd that I spotted altercation about to happen, and caught it, was able to stop it, kicked him out, and then that changed. Literally, people walked up and were like, man, standing up for what's right and kicking out some of your friends because they were both my friends, like kicking them out of your own concert because they were doing something that was just not okay, was really, really respectable and honorable, and like that really changed our opinion of you. We didn't know, we just thought you were some rock star, local rock star, and you're like a real human being that cares about people and the greater good. And so like you just, however it was, I was going to be used in these moments. That's what I experience when I get up there. And sometimes I'm just like, dude, what just happened? I need to watch the video back. So but it's euphoric too. I've tried to explain to people, at least for me, what it feels like when you're on stage, you're playing music for hundreds, thousands of people, whatever it is. Even if it's a club packed, 150, 200 person club packed, it's the same feeling when the crowd moves, when you impact people in the mass. It's this, it's the most humbling God complex that you experience. And the reason I say that and is you legitimately have just been given some sort of power over people because music has power over the spirit. Like you said, it might not, you said that Deny the Cross by Overkill is your favorite song, even though it might not align with, it's not God-centered or whatever, but it brings you closer to God, you feel.
It is not a song that is praising Jesus. It's flat out. It's not, of course, it's not meant to be a, Hail Satan song, but there's this dichotomy of, because of this sound, something in thrash music, something in hip hop, I'm able to appreciate the beauty of reality a little bit more. And that's how I feel like it brings me closer to God.
Yeah.
Disciple by Slayer is hilarious, so I just kind of let that go. It's a funny song, but God is Dead by Black Sabbath was a song that I avoided, but I never did my research. And I remember when they played it, and I was like, oh, I got to refrain from enjoying it. You ever have that moment God kind of gives you that shiver of like you're doing something wrong, like
Oh
something
yeah.
it's not so much the darkness in the room, but you're not doing right by me. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I looked at the lyrics and it was like, well, I don't believe God is dead, even though he's saying God is dead in the lyrics. I think that was God's trying to say, like, hey, you need to do a little bit more research on all of it, even if you don't listen to it. You need to be aware of what you're dealing with everybody. Um, so
Yeah.
I love how you put that. It could be a room full of, a small club, or it could be thousands. I just something about that connection of being able to give that experience to people is something I've always been in awe of.
Well, and then you're humbled by it, right? You're going, whoa, like somehow I was a part of that impact that I just had on somebody. Like people go, hey, you changed my life, or I was planning on to take my life. And some of the lyrics that you sang or wrote, or that song impacted me in this way and you moved me, or oh, I was crying because I went through that. I lost my child, and in that song where you were talking about loss of somebody, like it just helped me heal in that moment. And I thank you. And you're going, whoa, dude, I'm just a guy. Like, I don't want to feel responsible for that, even though it's cool. Like, I want to give it up there, to him. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's this humbling God complex because you made such a deep impact on somebody you've never even met through the most universal language in the world. And even though my message might be different than what they took from it, right? Because that's the beauty of music too. um, you were some part of that. You were the vessel that was able to deliver that message that God wanted to deliver that person in that moment. And bro, it's just like, whoa, this is way bigger than me. Okay, I'm humbled. So what do I do next, God? Like, where do we go next? And I think that's where, another piece of Novous, like I didn't have a bunch of believers in my band. And I'm not saying it has to be that way, but for me, that's what I'm protecting it with this time around. I want people that are God-centered and very spiritually sound because that you leave the door open a crack and the enemy can come in. And he absolutely can. And if music's the universal language of the world, it can be used for evil just as much as it can be used for good. And I want to make sure that this is healing people, not hurting people. So that's a big piece of why I'm doing it this way this time too. I want to make sure that we've just got that openness to be used however we need to in those moments on stage, wherever it is.
Yeah, we definitely got to change your name to Lion legally, good sir. I wanted because again, as we said, there was a step after step, and I promise you, the book is coming. But I can only imagine the thoughts you were having, especially after the story of the prophecy of like, are we going to survive? You're working for the school system, and you get let go. And not only are you getting let go, now you have no job and a family on the way because you're 2 weeks away from getting married. I'm kind of like, I've been very fortunate with my ignorance towards reality. Like I know the situation, but if it's like the worst of the worst, I'm so relaxed and God will handle it. And I'll say it. Sometimes I believe it with conviction. Other times I'm kind of like, well, what else am I going to do? That type of pressure. I can't imagine how that's different because I'm not in that type of relationship. But now instead of just you, your family's in this. Like, how am I going to provide? How did you go about dealing with that? And when did you come to that realization? Like, with all this knowledge I have, I got to write this book because it's a fascinating take instead of what we're hearing politically now from news outlets on both sides. It tackles something that I truly, truly believe is the issue at heart, and it's there's a severe lack of empathy, and there's a severe lack of helping the children and the family dynamic and establishing that ideology. So, two-pronged question: how did you go about it spiritually? And what was that spark in your mind of like, well, I did all this work? Because writing a book is no walk in the park. It's an extremely long process.
It is, and it's still challenging. I still am like, waiting to finish it. And I say waiting because I can't just I've tried to force myself to write and it just doesn't flow. I have to literally let the God download happen. It's just same with music. My best songs are always when I just go, all right, dude, like, what do you want for this? Just flow through me. So genuinely, again, I'm telling you, this woman's changed my life. It was my wife. We were 2 days removed from me being let go from the school. Like a dream job for me outside of me playing music was to work and counsel teens and just help heal them from whatever traumas they'd experienced, in their life already. And I got let go of that, and started doing research because the teens I were working with were kind of some of the more troubled teens that were having outbursts in school, and maybe we're getting into physical altercations and stuff. And I would just meet with them, once a day. Some of them were, a few times a week, sit and counsel with them for 30 to 60 minutes. And I would get these kids to really change their attitudes and change some parts of their character by the end of the week. And then they'd come back on Mondays and they were same character, same kid, with the same outbursts. And I'm going, what's the common denominator here? So I really started digging in. And I came to a realization that all these kids had three things in common, these three strains that were constantly in each one of these kids. And there was much more to it, but the three that were common denominators were lack of parent-child connection. So either overworked parents or a parent that was so invested in trying to find that next significant other that would be, that pillar of stability for them, or they were ingrained in their own selfish world, and leaving their kids at home and going out and doing their thing. I mean, you name it, the situation was there where the parent was not connecting with the child on a regular basis. And then with that comes a lot of lack of nutritional value in food. Kids are eating pizzas or fast food or snacks out of the cabinet while their parents are gone at night or working late. And that doesn't promote, healthy development. It just doesn't. And then you've got the last one being an excess of screen time. And what all three of these things I started realizing we're doing when I got to a bunch of studies, the common denominator between all those three is that all three atrophy gray and white matter in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is where we house our human skills, which separate us from every other living being on this earth. And so it became pretty astonishing to me that these cultural norms, right? Working extra hours, making extra money to make sure your family's financially stable, but sacrificing the family time and then sacrificing the food and that value, and then in turn sacrificing their brains by giving them screen time, was truly leaving these kids stuck in an emotional state where they were having outbursts rather than proper responses. And that's tangible evidences of lack of gray and white matter in the prefrontal cortex is anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, inappropriate acts in public, and violent acts, all things that we were seeing on the rise in our culture. And our human skills are empathetic response, communication skills, relationship skills. You've got conflict resolution, and all those things, are on the decline. Like we're not using those skills anymore as commonly. We're just attacking one another and reacting to one another and emotionally outbursting and vomiting all over one another. And I went, whoa, this is like a societal problem because it's a cultural norm that we've accepted, but it's destroying our families from the inside out. So I lose my job. 2 days later, we're in the car going to the grocery store, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, babe. We're gonna get married in a few weeks. Like, what? I'm a loser. Like, I'm walking up to the altar. I'm supposed to have your dad hand you over to a man who has no job, no source of income to provide for his family, no career path, like has nothing to show for himself right now. What makes this right? And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, I'm tearing up, I'm literally like angry with God. Like, how could you allow this to happen? Right. One of those moments. I think we've all had those moments. Like, how could you allow this to happen? And reality is there's a purpose to it. And so we often don't know in those moments, but this one was coming quick. So I'm sitting there and I'm starting to tear up, and I just hear, write a book and deliver it to the world. Write a book and deliver it to the world. Write a book and deliver it to the world. And I'm like, babe, I don't know why I keep hearing this over and over in my head, but I think God wants me to write a book about everything that I've uncovered and I've studied and deliver it to the world so every family can benefit rather than just the school I was going to put a program together for. And she said, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. So start doing it.
Now, did she just say that because she's the wife and just like go for it, or did she also vindicate? I'm sorry, validate that, like, you know what, I had that feeling too, babe. You got this. Was it
She,
one of those?
yeah, she validated, brother. I mean, my wife is she has been an appeaser in her past, and after meeting me with some, some of the rough around the edges Johnny, she's started setting some healthy boundaries for herself, and has not been the appeaser. And in this moment, I looked at her, I'm like, why would you agree with that? And she's like, because that's what you should do. This information's valuable and the impact you'll make is second to none. Why wouldn't God want you to do that? I totally align with him. And I'm going, and it's the same thing this time around with music. I'm going, why are you telling a man with 3 kids, a marriage, and a mortgage that I should not worry about the source of income right now, just get a job that pays our bills and start building this empire through music because this is what God wants you to do forever is make music. It makes no sense to me, bro. I I've tried to throw in the towel 5 times because we were getting financially strapped due to investing in music and our bills getting tight and I wanted us to have more of a cushion and she refuses to allow it. She refuses. And God always shows up after she refuses because she's keeping me one foot in front of the other, going towards the goal and going towards the calling that God has on my life. And she did the same thing with the book and keeps doing it. So she's a fire breather, man. And she does it in such a soft, beautiful way that's so encouraging. Um, I mean, anybody would be a fool to not listen to her.
But you know what? You said fire, and it reminded me of a dear friend of mine who it's funny. We barely even talked in college, but every time we talk, you get that fire of God, the spirit, or even let's preach to the non-believers. Where my heathens at? Those are some of my best friends. You get that spiritual adrenaline, that feeling of I'm gonna take on the world. Um, that's what you have with her. She gives you that encouragement, that play PlayStation. I'm sorry, is what I wanted to say. Video games. She gives you that safe spot to be vindicated and know like I'm on the right path, because I'm still amazed how you get that answer from God so quickly, so easily, without having to think I'm overthinking it. Maybe I just thought it to thought it versus no, God is actually speaking. I wanted to reach out and question about your mentor, who was actually trying to bring you back into music country wise, but he was tugging at you like, hey, come on, let's do it. You were a little apprehensive, and you already answered like the whole portion of going back at it with kids and the family. But I wanted to know what that process was like after losing him. You guys were so close. I wanted to respectfully ask for his name, and then I wanted to know the circumstances that you had to overcome with his son's prophecy, because even after it's like, hey man, God's gonna make you do it. It was even more stuff after everything you've been through, after litigation, after getting kicked out, after figuring out how to do it right. Then there were even more demons that you had to fight. And I think that's the basis of the music that we're hearing now with the Blood of Lions. That those final demons that you finally had to, I wanted to say corrupt, I'm sorry, that you had to address. So could you please elaborate on that time frame as well?
Absolutely. So Alan Madson was like a father to me. He was the manager of one of the bands that I joined after Novous Folium broke up, called From Slaves to Kings, and his son Patrick was the drummer of that band. And man, the stories that we have together. I mean, he loved me like a dad. Uh, it was family. Like it was family out of the gates, and um, and it was just beautiful. And even though we moved states apart and everything, like I would call him for fatherly advice when I needed it, or he would always tell me, he's like, "Don't screw it up, Johnny. You married way out of your league, So if you don't, or if you screw it up, I'm calling Melissa and I'm gonna make sure she's taken care of, And he would always just like razz me. So he was just this, but he was a tough guy. He had rough relationships with some of his family, and some of the ways he delivered stuff was brass and harsh. And I think that's why him and I never really got too heated with one another, is because we understood one another. We understood when you were saying like something brash and blunt, that you're supposed to take the truth from it, not the tone and the delivery. And that's what we could see through one another was and take the emotions out of it. And at first I was like, our second or third practice, I'm like, dude, I can't do this. This guy's a complete jerk. But then I realized, in that moment when I took a break, I literally took a 15-minute breather and was like, I'll be back. I'll see if I even want to be in this band. And I came back and I'm like, you know what? He's pushing me because he wants the best out of me. And that means that he knows that there's more in me that I don't even realize. And because of him, this album sounds the way it does. I would not have reached in this album the way that I did to hit the notes that I do, to deliver these vocals the way that I do, and to push myself to become the best vocalist I possibly could be if it wouldn't have been for him and him pushing me in that band. So fast forward to, another 12 years later, he has given me father advice. He's, become really close to me. He supports my marriage. Even when we're having issues and I'm going, hey, I don't know if we're going to make it. He's like, you're going to make it. And I'm going to tell her the same thing. You guys are going to stick together because you're great. He was just a fantastic human being. I know that a lot of people had rough experiences with him, but I got to know the genuine, like, lover side of Alan Madson. Um, and when I always like begged him to kind of bring me into a country album, it'd be my roots. I wanted to do a solo album of country someday. And I'm like, bro, I'm not doing anything with music. Let's just like write a song or two. You used to write country songs. Like, let's write a song or two and lay it down at your house or something. And he's like, you really want to do that, Johnny? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, all right, we're going to go to Nashville and we're going to work with Brooks and Dunn and Reba McEntire's players. And I'm like, whoa, brother, hold on, hold on. I'm not ready for that. Like, I still, I'm still facing a lot of internal demons, personal demons, imposter syndrome, a lot of lack of self-worth, and, not thinking that I'm worthy of receiving a gift like that. That's why God wiped it out last time and all this stuff. And he's like, Johnny, we're just going to do it. Let's get it done. And that was 3 months before he passed away, unfortunately. We were talking about getting this thing together, when we were going to do it, and he suffered a heart attack. And my biggest regret was not picking up the damn phone and calling him, because he texted me or I texted him and said, hey, how are you doing? I love you. I miss you. I'm praying for you. I know you're in the hospital right now. Heal up. And he's like, well, you can call me. It's no problem. I said, hey, your family's around right now. Focus on your family, and focus on healing, and we'll connect when you get out of the hospital. And he's like, well, I'm not dead yet, Johnny. That was his last text to me. His last text ever to me was, I'm not dead yet, Johnny. And it was 2 days later, after he got out of the hospital, and he was doing his walks. And the next day, I saw that he was back in the hospital. And unfortunately, when he was in the hospital, because he was having complications, I think he was having another heart attack or stroke at the time. I can't remember. It was just, they compounded. They had blood clots, and had to do a surgery on his brain because he had a blood clot in his brain, and it was 99% chance that he wasn't coming out of it. And unfortunately, lost his life. And got that call, and I couldn't not be there to honor him, and I could not be there to support Patrick, who's like a brother to me. And it had been a few years since me and Alan had seen each other, and I had to be there. And so I went there, and the celebration of life was on a Saturday. Sunday, I was just spending the day with Patrick, and I wake up Sunday morning before anybody, and I am having a full-blown anxiety attack. And mind you, John, I have not dealt with anxiety in life ever, until maybe the last like 2 or 3 years. It started just kind of creeping in here and there. But this was like, I wanted to run away from my own like skin suit, get on a plane early, and like never see myself or anybody I knew again. And it was the weirdest feeling. And I explained this to Patrick, and I'm like crying and having this anxiety attack. And he's like, bro, let's go do something positive. Let's go sit on a patio in the sun right next to the lake. Let's have some breakfast, eat some good food. Let's talk through this. And so we're talking through life and, finances and job. And I'm like, dude, I have a family and I have no career path. And he's like, music. And I'm like, no, dude, that's a pipe dream. I'm a father of three, a husband, I have a mortgage. I have to go make the next dollar and find a six-figure income. And he's like, bro, your overhead is too much in Colorado. Just move to a different state where you can afford to live and let God work out the rest, because my dad's rolling over his grave right now knowing you're not making music. So you should probably get to making music because God's called you to it. He's like, I'm telling you, Johnny, I'm telling you, I believe this with my whole heart more than you do. And you're going to turn back and say thank you someday for you believing in it when I couldn't. But I know God has music for you, and he's going to make a way for you to make music, regardless of you wanting to do it or not. So I got on the plane that Sunday night and I went back to work, and I was working for a guy and his company. It wasn't the greatest. I was working long, long hours. He was supposed to be a really good friend of mine. Um, we had done life together, kids' birthday parties, double dates, and I had caught him taking time off of my time card a few times for hours that I had worked. And I confronted him and he said, "Oh, it must have been a mistake," but he never changed it. And so I came back, I worked like a really long day that Monday, came back in Tuesday morning, and my time was adjusted with like an hour or two missing off of it. Like enough that I was like, this is egregious. And I went, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And we talked, and he was like, "Yeah, this is probably not going to work out." I said, "Well, you're probably right, because you can't take time away from me that I actually worked. Like I need to get paid for the time I was working, and I'm doing plumbing. I'm knee deep in crap, literally, like in somebody's basement, and I'm not getting paid for this time. That's wild." So I said, "But here, I'm an honest and honorable person. I will give you my best until I find another position." He said, "Nope, you're fired." And I went, "Whoa." So I called my wife and I texted Patrick and I said, "Hey, I just got fired and I don't have a job, and I'm probably not gonna have a job for 2 or 3 weeks. I guess I'm supposed to go home and make some music." And Patrick's like, "That's exactly what you should do." So I went home and I picked up my kids, took them for a hike, me and my boys, picked up my daughter early from daycare, hung out with her, had a like happy hour cocktail with my wife, just talking about life. And she said, "Looks like God made some time for you to go make music. Didn't your friend send you like 3 rock/metal songs that he wanted you to write vocals to a few months ago?" I said, "Yeah, he did." She goes, "Okay, go upstairs and write some songs." So I went upstairs for an hour and wrote to all 3 of these songs and recorded one the next day and mixed and mastered it and sent it off to Patrick, and the rest is history. He sent it off to my producer Corey. Corey said he wanted to make the album. I mean, that story, that's another 10-minute story, but when it comes back Alan and Patrick, like they are one of the biggest reasons I'm doing it. My wife has been the biggest reason I stay in it, and her belief in it. After she heard the first song too, she couldn't believe it. Her response before I even sent it to Patrick is why I sent it to him, because she was blown away. She's like, "I didn't even know you had this in you." Our first date was the night after my last rock concert I ever played. So she never got to see that version of me, or hear that version of me, or experience that writing version of me. So that really, I went, okay, God speaks in patterns. He speaks pretty repetitively to me, um, and it's pretty, even though he speaks softly, like it resonates pretty loudly when he's speaking to me, and it's almost like this. It's not like anxiety, but my body almost feels like it's vibrating like anxiety when I get those messages, either the dream or the visions or the repetitions, and I go, "Okay, that's the sign. I'm going to go with it, regardless of my wants and desires." And I will tell you, brother, a week before each time I went to record each half of this album, I was not going to go. Even hours before this last time, I was telling my wife I wasn't going. And I'm afraid he shows up in numbers for me too. I'm not kidding. Like anytime I'm questioning things, the numbers 8 and 24. Huge Kobe fan, so you call it coincidence, but it's only been since Kobe has passed that this has actually been like a very big. I'm always like, "Hey, give me a sign," and then 8 and 24 show up. Like we'll get our bill and it'll be $24.24 or $24.08, or like that's what it was. We were having like a lunch date before I got on the plane this last time. And I'm like, "I'm not going. I'm not doing it. Like, we need the money for our bills more so than we need me to make this album." And she's like, "No, the return on investment is going to be 100-fold. I know that. God has told me this. You need to get on this plane." And I was like, "I'm not getting on the plane." And the lady's like, "Are you guys all good and we're closed up?" And I'm like, "Yep, we're good. I'll take the tab." And she slid me the receipt, and I'm pulling out my wallet and I'm looking down, and my wife goes, "Do you see that?" And I said, "See what?" She goes, "Look at the darn bill." And it was $24.08. And I was like, I guess I'm getting on a plane. So I got on the plane, and those demons weren't done being battled. I mean, I battled for the next 2 days with writer's block. After that second day in the studio, I had a nightmare about some sexual abuse that I went through as a kid, all night of that just repeating in my head, the experience over and over and over again. And I was exhausted when I woke up the next morning, like literally felt like somebody put me in a pillowcase and just kicked me all night. Just felt exhausted. buddy was like, how'd you sleep? I'm like, horrible. Oh, was it too hot? Was it too cold? I'm like, no, bro. The house is great. This was just demons, I'm battling. Um and I told him, I said, literally this came out of my mouth after that. I said, but if Satan's coming after me this hard and not even leaving me alone in my sleep, there's got to be breakthrough and something good on the horizon. And on the way into the studio for that 35-minute drive, three of the songs, the melodies and the lyrics just downloaded, and I was flowing. I mean, and it just unleashed. Um, so I'm a firm believer that even Alan has sent me messages since he's passed. I mean, it, so a little background. Here's my theory. I was born and choked by my umbilical cord and died and and had to be revived. And so I'm a realist, and I go, what's the logic behind why I can clearly hear a message? I go, hey, this is God. Move forward with it, and it aligns. Like, why? I'm not special. I'm just a human being like everybody else. And I just maybe that death of my spirit's kind of leaving my body for a minute. Maybe that aligns me with the spiritual world a little bit more, or leaves me open, not aligns me, but leaves me more open and susceptible to hearing more clearly. I don't know. But I will tell you, it's been a blessing and a curse. And sometimes I don't want to align with it. So, um, but yeah, Alan, Patrick, huge pieces of this. Patrick helped write the first three songs in that first stint as well. Because he just believed in me so much, and we were off to the races after that. I mean, we left there and he goes, you don't even need me, bro. Like, you got in there and you were right back in the saddle. 12 years off and you didn't miss a lick. So and that belief in me is something I'm still searching for in myself. You hear a lot of perfectionist deliveries. We touched on it earlier from dad or even from coaches, and you want to be that athlete that everybody believes you can be. You want to be as successful as everybody believes you can be. And so when you fall short, you feel like a failure, and then you kick yourself and you're like, it's not even worth me trying because I'm just a failure anyways. I'm just going to fail anyways. And those messages, when you hear them year after year after year after year from multiple sources, they just get ingrained in you, and it almost becomes your identity to an extent. And I've really worked in many different ways: therapy, church groups, men's retreats that are focused on pulling this trauma out of you, like to kick that out of the way. Um, and sometimes I still struggle with it. And I've been gifted with many people like Patrick, like Alan, my wife, my publicist Jamie. You know,
Jamie.
yeah.
God.
I mean, the belief that these people have in me. My wife's best friend couldn't believe that this was me on the album, and her boyfriend, who's a huge producer in Hollywood, movie producer in Hollywood, heard it, and he's like, "You're my favorite band. I can't stop listening to your music." And he's pitched it to some record labels that he's friends with, and I mean, the support and the belief that God's put around me. You would think that a man at this point in his music career would believe that he's supposed to do something with music, and I'm not trying to play the victim here whatsoever, but it's real. We battle with these things. People battle with imposter syndrome and the lack of self-worth, and that's what I want to write about. Like, I'm just like everybody else in the world that's just trying to figure it out and fumble through it, and just, at the end of the day, if I can go to bed and wake up the next morning, I'm like, that's a victory. That's a victory in itself, because the world's not easy, and God never said it was going to be easy, whether you're a believer or not. We know it's not easy. I think that's a lot of the reasons, and a lot of times why people aren't believers in God. Like, why would God allow the world to be this hard? If he's here to do, be the Almighty and do so much good. So, um, yeah, man, I just, again, to touch on what you had said, this music is that. This album is literally 10 songs about the last 5 years of one, Built for the Moment. My first single is about the realization that music is what was missing and why I was so miserable for the last 8 years. Like writing it, expressing myself, giving my therapeutic outlet a chance to flow and to be free. Um, that was what was missing, and that's what Patrick kept trying to tell me, that God was, showing me too. And you know, success in this venture, and this is something Jamie and I have talked about, is different to me, because I did it. I recorded it. I released it. I got myself back. That's success. And people are starting to be impacted by these songs. That's success. So if it goes to the levels that I'm back playing on some of the biggest stages with some of the big acts in the world, that's cool. But success has already been accomplished. And that's the difference this time around is like I've gotten myself to a place where I'm not worried about the numbers as much. I am an analytical guy. I'm a very big numbers guy, but like I've let them go. You know, I don't check the numbers every day for Spotify. I'm not worried about how many plays I'm getting right now. The numbers that I expected us to get, we didn't get, but we got numbers better than, 90% of people on Spotify in this position. And to me, I'm going, all right, God's using it, and however he's going to use it, he's going to use it. And right now he's using it in some pretty decent ways, and that's cool. But success has already been had because I've had people say, "You revived me. You brought me back to life. You helped me heal from the loss of my child because I heard one of your songs, and I connected with it so much." And these are close friends and family and people in the industry that are being moved, and so I feel successful already, um, and I think thankfully, the support system, my men's group, my wife, Alan, Patrick, Jamie, these people that God has just put in my life. I have not searched for them, that this is going differently, you know?
And before I move on, because if you people have noticed, and I don't mean you people in that way, don't be ridiculous now, fans. I did not interrupt him because he was just hitting every single one of my questions, the big things, mental health. I know back in the day for our parents, it was a joke. I get that. But even today, there's things my dad went through that he doesn't address that I'm like, you know what? My mom has brought that up. And I think I'm going through that too. And because she was wise in that area and I knew I could talk to her, I dealt with it. He hasn't. Or vice versa, with not just the mental and physical aspect, but the spirits. Man, I tell you no lie. I wasn't dabbling with witchcraft, but I was trying to get right spiritually. And I unintentionally, intentionally brought something into my house that, it was like God gave me the warning. Everything else is fine, but that. And then you start having those dreams. You start, again, I'm a realist, so I like to think God does it all through science. So most of the time you get sleep paralysis or something, there's an explanation. But as you said, the patterns, started happening, start having a dream. You're like, wait a minute, is focusing, gotta trash this. But it's not easy because you think it's stupid. It's like this is the dumbest thing in the world. Just throw it away. Just get rid of it. And it's a fight of doing right, doing wrong, belief in yourself, especially after what I mentioned to you earlier prior to, you know, that support I've been getting. And it's still like, can I do this? Will I survive? What am I going to do? And God's just kind of like, you know what? Just be confident. You got it. So
Yep.
it's fascinating to see that. The main thing I got out of this, and I'm not saying this to be a smart aleck, it sounds like Alan has made Kobe Bryant you're our guardian angel. It sounds like you now have an agent in the spirit world doing good business for you. Because that the 8 and the 24, that's what I meant by God relaying it to you. So that's pretty epic, man. It's so cool to see how it's just happening. I'm not saying I'm jealous. I support my people, but when I was a kid, something like this, just to be able to perform, just to be able to be on stage, just to have a couple of moments to do what you do and to be ordained for that gift, man. I'm
Mm.
just incredibly enthralled. I'm happy to see that happening for you so easily with the backing of most musicians. It's in the corner, jump and the net will appear is the statement. And you actually got the definitive, like, no, signed, sealed, approved, just do it. Man, what a blessing that is.
Yeah. It's scary too, right? Because I think that also, again, that brings me back to um, sometimes that feels like pressure, right? Because you're going, I've got all these people telling me God straight up told them, or they know in their spirit, they feel it in their heart when they hear my music, or their spirit when they hear my music, that this is going to happen. Like this music will be a household sound in people's ears around the world, with alongside the biggest names and acts in the world. And I'm going, but if it doesn't, are you guys going to be let down? And like, what if it doesn't? Like, I don't want to let you guys down because you believe so much. And the reality is, like, get that out of here, man, because that's the enemy wanting to bring me back down to into that, like you said, that paralysis. And I do get some of that anxiety paralysis sometimes where I just don't even move. I know what actions I need to take, but I'm just like staring at the list and I don't even do one of them, even though it's as simple as, oh, all I have to do is respond to that text and hit send. But something like that feels like a freaking Mount Everest that I have to climb, and it's so crazy. And so, um, I don't know. It just I'm grateful. I'm grateful that music has entered back into my life. I'm grateful that people are appreciative of it, and I'm grateful that God is doing it because I have not wanted to do it. And I think that's another huge difference is I'm not pushing for this to be the utmost successful band or project or music that you've ever heard. But people believe it's going to be, and God is slowly building this into more successful than I could have thought it would have been. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm excited and cautiously optimistic, right? Cautiously optimistic. If this goes to those levels, would that be a huge blessing? 100%. But there's curses that come with that. When new levels, new devils, and I just have to remind myself of that. And folks, when you hear that song, I tell you, you're gonna relate to it because, um, and you're gonna understand exactly what I'm talking about here. But yeah, just man, and even interviews like this, connecting with folks like yourself over this music is a beautiful thing, because it gives me the constant reminder of who's in the steering wheel or who's behind the steering wheel and in control, and that I'm just along for this beautiful ride that's going on.
And you've also mentioned in other interviews, the empire is the beauty of the ashes. Those lyrics are going to hit on a heavy tune. Man, you also, I know for a fact, you've been pitching the song, not just to the radio stations and Spotify picking up, but, NHL might have their hand on it. I was sitting here like, you know what? This feels like a WWE song to me. I know you know your Stone Cold. I know you know your WWF at least, maybe not WCW, but I was sitting there like, what other avenues just have fun with it because I do believe sometimes God wants us to believe in the vision, to have a little fun of hope and, make the goal our own. So it's still kind of that back and forth. I know people, not the best example, but, people ask, did Pharaoh harden his heart or did God harden his heart? And
Mm,
James Baker said it best. Shout out to Rorschach test when he said both were just acting like themselves. God was being
mm.
God, Pharaoh was being Pharaoh, both were working in unison. But it wasn't like one was forcing the other. And I think God gives us a beautiful, in the opposite of that example, that beautiful, wonderful opportunity to like, hey, yeah, I'm giving you this opportunity, but it's still very much you're the one with the paintbrush. This is your story. So what would be an outlet for built for this moment? The single to be featured on? What would be that like, yeah, that is forget even how I feel. That's vindication beyond my wildest dreams.
Brother, you nailed it, man. I mean, you talked about it earlier. I'm a sports guy, huge, huge sports guy. I grew up a competitive athlete, playing with like Fernando Valenzuela's son and Tony Gwynn Jr. and all these guys in baseball, and surrounded by top tier athletes in California. Um, Sports is a huge passion of mine as well. So, and you might have mistaken me, my friend. Ultimate Warrior and Sting were my people. So WCW and WWF before it became WWE were my jams. Me and my really close friend Austin, we used to have parties for every special event. So we would nerd out. But yeah, I mean that would be a freaking honor, bro. Like when we finished Built for the Moment, and Patrick and Corey and I listened to it through for the first time when the vocals were tracked, we all looked at each other and went, "Whoa, dude, banger of a song." But that sounds like somebody's like walkout song for MMA, like maybe, you know, or WWE, maybe who knows, maybe the UFC will pick it up for promos for their fight nights or their pay-per-views, or shoot, maybe the NBA or NFL will pick it up for like playoff promos and stuff. And I went, "Whoa, that's actually kind of the vibe that it gives me. It pumps me up. It makes me want to go out there and like conquer something and like compete for something." And I think that's what the song's about. It's like I'm built for this moment to make music right now. I'm built to compete for myself, to bring this part of myself back and let it go again. Like, and it was this moment right here that God built for me to experience it again. And that's why I say I find myself at the pinnacle, um, you know, of something more than a miracle, because there's no way, based on everything I've gone through in life, that I should even be a functioning member of society. But with all of that being said, like, there's no way that I should even be making music right now in my logical mind, and it's here. And so, if being pitched to the NHL was wild. When my buddy said he was gonna do that, and he's worked, he did work for the Avs on their Stanley Cup run, and he works directly with one of the or the executive of production for the NHL. He said, he's like, I'm a hockey player. I just think this is supposed to be a promo song for the playoffs of the Stanley Cup. And I want to talk to her about it. So, still in talks. We'll see what happens. It could be for the next round, could be the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't know. But if it's not this year, I do believe that song's going to be used for something of that nature. And it would be like, I'll give you a little story too. I got to meet Dan Brown one time, the author of the Da Vinci Code, and I didn't even know it, brother. I was driving for Uber. He asked me what I do outside of driving for Uber. I told him about my book that we just talked about. He said, "You have to write this book. You're spot on about everything. You're a public speaker as well. Go get signed up for a public speaking bureau, and you know, and get this thing done. And I'm going to send you something. Give me your address." And so I wrote my address down on my business card. I said, "Can I have your business card?" He goes, "Nope." I said I was going to send you something. A week and a half later, the Da Vinci Code, the book, shows up in an envelope from Adam Smith. That was the guy's name on the app in Uber. And it's signed inside. It says, "To Jonathan, from one creative to another, sincerely, Dan Brown." And I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, I already have the Da Vinci Code, but this guy knows my style and he must know Dan Brown. And I turn to the back sleeve and I look at the picture and I'm like, holy crap, that was Dan Brown in my car. And he's sitting here telling me, "You got to do this." And and you get those deliveries, and like, I don't know, I just feel like this is that moment where God's like, "You got to do this. You got to make this music. You got to deliver it." And I think the NHL pitch for this is like even more affirmation, and there's just a lot of affirmation right now, and how could I ignore it? How could I? But that would be a huge one, bro. That would be a huge one.
And I think the beauty of your situation now is you're actually in a place in life where you can enjoy the win or lose, whatever. You're emotionally mature to deal with it, but now you can truly, in the moment, while it's happening, enjoy it, feel it. Because a lot of win, and I know you understand this, a lot of times we'll have the biggest win, but we've gone through so much, as you say, trauma. It could be whatever. Sometimes we had it in our grips and then we lost it, or another situation where something after the fact spoiled it, kind of like the Will Smith slap, and then he won the Oscar. Well, it's tainted. There's so many situations that personally I myself have gone through where it's like, I did it, it's been done, and I cannot register the blessing until after the fact. But you were able to enjoy this. Something I caught, and I really wanted to nitpick at two things. The one thing I really do love about the song is you grew up during a time of Breaking Benjamin. A lot of the Nothing More stuff was really big. And during that time frame, a lot of the music format for not just alternative, but the newer metal, all over the place stuff was scream and then clean vocals and then scream again. Here you have a particular spot at the end of the song where you're clean vocals throughout, but then you get the scream in at that very that solo portion spot is where I would have considered it. And I thought that was a great decision to really finish like the greatest final hook in the song, because the song, at least to me, I don't know if that was your approach. I didn't think it needed a solo either. So I wanted to know what felt right to change the vocals at that particular moment.
Yeah, I mean, for me, screaming is something that I started utilizing for that emotional touch to things. I think if it can be used tastefully, and I don't mind bands that scream the whole time, but I think if you truly want to impact the masses, you want to spread a message, you want to get through to people, they're going to have to understand what you're saying. But in that, I think there's also an understanding, even if you don't know or can't really hear the lyrics through that emotion that's being presented in a scream, that it presents the angst or that outburst of letting go of something, or going, "Wow, I'm here. Okay, I'm ready for it. Like, come on, come and get me," And that's where I was in that song. I'm going, and that was the first song we wrote together, me and Corey and Patrick. We went in with nothing, from like zero, and just started putting this song together. And Patrick had coined the phrase about me, built for the moment. He had been asked, what, why should I talk to this guy? He was a multimillionaire business owner. He goes, why should I talk to this guy? Why would I want to work with this guy? And Patrick goes, because he's built for the moment, man. He, like, any moment that comes at him in life, he's going to conquer it, and he's ready to fight it and win. And that's just who Johnny is. And I went, whoa, that's how you see me? And he's like, yeah, like everybody does. And I looked around to some of my friends, and they're like, yep, that's true. Like, never told you that, but yeah, and it's like, whoa, okay. So when we went in the studio, that had just stuck out in my head. And I kept hearing that over the song, and I started writing it. And we got to that part, and I went, you know, I have backed down from pushing through the wall of maybe like being right there with success, and like hitting a wall and letting it just deter me from moving on. When that wall is there, instead of busting through it, sometimes I'm like, maybe it's not for me, and I turn around. And I think I've blocked God's blessing in that before in my life, and I've realized that people have challenged me. You seem to like get right to the echelon of the utmost success, and then when it feels like there's a wall that's in front of you, instead of trying to either take it down brick by brick or bust through it or even climb it, you go, oh, I guess this isn't what God had for me, and you turn around. And I didn't want that to be portrayed at all in this song, because this time feels different. Like, I'm going to bust through the wall. I wanted to say no 5 times. I've had people cheering for me, and I bust through the wall, instead of saying, I'm going to ignore you guys and do my thing and do it the way I want to, because this is bigger than me. I've mentioned that. So at that point, I wanted to scream, like, at the bigness of what could be coming, at the fact that this is big for me to even be stepping back into music on a personal level, the bigness of what's gone on in my life and what I'm writing about, the bigness of the support that I'm feeling, all of that stuff. And I just wanted to let all that energy out in that moment and go, hey, future, whatever you look like, I'm here for it, and I'm going to stand and fight no matter what you bring my way. And that's what comes out, and that's why I'm saying, like, I see the future is coming. I will not back down. And I repeat it to ingrain it. Like, I will not back down. I will not back down. I want you to know that. Like, it's not like I'm just telling you this. Like, this is going to be my mantra. I'm standing here, I'm fighting, planting my feet in the ground, and I'm moving forward, even if it sucks and it hurts and it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to. I'm going to be the person that God's called me to be, and I'm going to let him use me in this forum, and however he wants, and bring the success that he wants. And even though it scares the absolute shit out of me that this could be super successful, and what does that look like? How do I deal with that success? Because I've never been there. I'm here for it. And I'm going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Even while I'm saying no, I'm just going to keep moving. So that's where that came from.
Genius, 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 and inspirational, man. We just gonna have you do a little bit of everything. We're gonna have you do your motivational speaking. I got it. We're gonna do what it's gonna be a little out there. So it's gonna be like a whole day event, whatever city you go. You're gonna do the motivational speaking, then there's gonna be the game, and then there's gonna be the after party, which is gonna be the performance of Blood Alliance. We're gonna make you a bunch of money. Because my
Let's
God,
go.
my God is a God that loves money too. Money is the root of all evil. He didn't say it was the problem, okay?
Hey, let's go, brother. I like that. I like that.
And I wanted to stress because you did have a root in, I would say, country music. Country music is one of those art forms where no matter what, even if I don't like the song, even if I don't like the artist, I think we're both on the same level. We like the older country. We are fans of Johnny Cash. Just these abilities, Hank Williams might not be the style of music we would approach, but their ability to storytell is there. And I also see that in hip hop. Hip hop and, excuse me, country are very alike, even though they have different poetic schemes. I wanted to know if you thought that's how you were influenced when you write these lyrics. Again, I already mentioned Empire's Beauty in the Ashes, but the lyrical content so well structured, so well done at presenting the story. Like you said, they need to understand what you're saying, but it also has to be cognitive of creating this visual. That's why the Peppers are so loved, because he's talking gibberish, but man, it's a great vision, an acid trip with lyrics. So I wanted to know if you thought that was how country music presents itself with your other influences. Because I'm telling you, man, Dean and his brother Robert, they are some smooth cats when they come to playing STP and music. And I see that too. Harder edge music, but your music transitions are smooth.
I totally agree with you. I think, I've never really made that correlation. That's why I'm the storyteller in my lyrics. It's truly a song that is telling a story in every song. And that's why, to kind of give people a teaser, I'm creating uh, a spotlight each time I release a single. Built for the Moment's going to be a little late, but it's called DNA of a song, and it's literally like what caused this in my life for this song to be written, like what moment brought this song to life, because each one is a story of something that truly went on. And a lot of them, they have your story, the beginning, the intro, the middle of what happened, the conflict, and then the resolve of how either I faced it and got through it, or there's a song about an issue that we're still actively dealing with my oldest son that we still have not heard from since last May. And that song has no resolve, and you feel it. And you feel it in the way that it was written, and you feel it in the structure of the song, and you feel it in the lyrics. And that's the story, because the story isn't over. And you're just left hanging on this note with this feeling of like, well, wait a second, what happens after this? And I don't know, because we're still writing the story. And I think that's the beauty of music is, you have a landscape that, a blank canvas, I should say, that you can paint with a landscape of sound and words that can depict whatever emotion and feeling and thing that you're trying to articulate. And if you do it right, you don't even have to explain, people will feel it. And I think that's the difference in this album is like I've written great songs before, but when people hear these songs, they go, whoa, felt that. And everybody has a different favorite song. And their favorite song is different because it's the one that impacted them the most. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that I'm going, wait, each one of these 10 tracks has already been considered like a handful of people's favorite songs that are in my close knit group. That's never happened. So God is doing something different, because this wasn't from me. I told you how some of those lyrics came out after I made that statement and just gave that to God and was like, hey, if this is how I'm being attacked, he's going to have some breakthrough for me. And he did, and believing that, I think, was the breakthrough, belief in that coming, rather than, sitting there and going, oh, why is this happening to me? Why can't I have like, why am I having writer's block? What a waste of money and all this stuff. I could have wallowed in that, but I chose to go, if it's going this rough, there's got to be some greatness coming, man. And we only got 6 days left, and I've got 0 songs written. I'm supposed to come out of here with 6 songs. Okay, what are we doing? You know, so, and God goes, well, here's what I'm doing. I'm giving you 35 minutes and 3 songs in that 35 minutes. And it's just, you know, yeah, he just shows up, man. And it's showing through these songs. And again, I don't want the credit. Like, I had to live out these things, right? And I was the vessel to deliver these stories. But at the end of the day, like, God ripped me out of those moments for me to survive, for me to help bring those moments to somebody else's life and hopefully let them know they're not alone. They've got a friend who can empathize and understand and just listen if need be, or just sing to you about it if need be and heal you over and over and over again, like music did for me.
I've expressed this to the artists, you included, man. What a wonderful gift. I always say, in the grand scheme of reality, as I always include everybody, doesn't matter what you believe, everybody at least has one job that contributes. Whether it's you're born and then you peace out immediately or you stay 90 years, everybody has one job where they affect somebody positively in reality. And you've been given this wonderful ability to do it over and over. God has ordained you to have that opportunity. There was the cover you were working on, trying to get some features, trying to make that number 10. I didn't know if you guys had completed the last one. And if you didn't, Cannibal was a song that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt that it would be a beautiful roundabout, an acknowledgement of was here, now I'm here, this is the rebirth, this is the new beginning, acknowledging what you've come through. That's how I rationalized it. Were you able to come up with that final song yet and seal the deal? Is it recorded? Is it still in process?
Still in process. So, actually heading back to San Antonio in 2 weeks to go down and meet up with Corey. We're going to be recording a music video and doing some promo shots and stuff like that, and talking about next steps on at least the cover that we're going to look at. We have probably about 10 songs on that list that I sent to him, and then when it comes to the collaboration, we're just kind of putting our feelers out to some people that we think we obviously would be honored to work with, but we think might appreciate what we've got going right now at least, and want to put something together. But man, you really threw me a curveball there. I have never thought about going back and covering one of those Novous songs that we wrote, and I think that's also the beauty of this album is um, I had this vision for Novus that I felt like we're so close to, like we were right there. And, Warner Brothers and Capitol, I think they realized it too, because that's why they would want to work with us. They saw something that they felt they could polish up and turn it into, a diamond, and it could do something. Um, and I felt that same way. And I felt like we were getting so close on our own, like so close. Um, and this time around, I went, like I want to work with people. I don't want to just write songs on my own. Like I want to work with other artists that have their own ideas of where this should go, because that's going to make me a better musician in the long run. Because all my ideas aren't always the best, and I think collaboration is, a key to success for most people in life. Most people have had help to get where they're at when they are super successful, or had somebody that collaborated with on an idea that helped them to round out that idea, or helped them to provide a plan and plan of action to deliver that idea. So um, I wanted to collaborate on some of this stuff. Now, lyrics and vocal melodies and stuff like that have predominantly, I'd say 98% on this album were me. There was a couple lyrical ideas that were tossed my way that we put in there, or some vocal ideas that we put in there. But, we had free reign. But sometimes the song was, I gave them a voice note that I had, from years ago that I thought would be a really great melody with some lyrical content behind it. And my producer wrote a whole song about around it. And I went, all right, like didn't hear that going that direction, but that direction makes sense for the emotion and what I'm presenting in the lyrics. And so it's been really cool to kind of see this vision of Blood of Lions become exactly what I thought Novous Folium could be. And it's a little bit heavier, which I kind of always wanted us to lean towards, and lean into with Novous. It's um, it's very much similar in the way that it's almost like a blender rock, genre, where I'm blending notes of techno and hip hop and metal and hard rock, and sometimes country, even in the like acoustic chorus that I have on one of the songs, Wage War, and the vibe of like almost like this western gritty metal song, and then it goes into this like country breakdown chorus. And I wanted these influences in my life, these essentially stamps that music's left on my life, to be presented in music. And I always wanted that with Novus, but we really were able to put it together because I had a producer who believed in my vision, who saw my vision, and who went, yeah, this is what I want to help bring to life for somebody. And I believe this guy can do it vocally, so let's make it happen. So that's been a real big difference as well.
Just only because we're in this idea. It was like someone speaking in tongues and then somebody translating it. That's kind of how I got it. Because I always think of we always equate the greats to people that can do it on their own. We think of Michael Jackson, we think of Prince, and then when they do reach out, they're essentially just getting extensions of themselves. It's kind of like Quentin Tarantino. You don't change the script. It's fine as is, as he would. Um, but it's truly great to know you have an understanding of what you would like, what you need for the vision to come true. I always end these with the most important question. What's the best piece of advice that readily comes to mind that someone has given you? Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it was a joke, sometimes it was a sit down. I really need to have a conversation with you. What is something that somebody's told you that when you got to lock in, when you're having your fights and your moments, you remember like, hey, okay, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to cheat the system and give you two here. One is something that I live by, and that is patterns speak louder than actions and words. And the reason I'm a firm believer in that, and also have experienced that, is not just in human nature, but also, as I mentioned, in some of my spiritual experiences. It's a pattern that's showing up. And, you know, if I look for the pattern in things, I can usually get myself out of a thought process or a belief that is not accurate or is leading me down a path I don't need to go to. Um, and and then um, you know, it sounds so cliche. It sounds so cliche, but man, it truly is always darkest before the dawn. Like it is. It's just a fact of life. And I think these cliche phrases that we get given through life, people kind of scoff at because like, oh yeah, that's what my grandparents used to say. But they're there for a purpose. Like I have had to realize that I'm not being punished when those dark times come or those rough times come or those challenges come. I'm actually being challenged to level up, grow, and become a better version of myself. And that's what Empire's Beauty in the Ashes is all about. Like sometimes you have to let go of the old self in order to receive the new self. Sometimes you have to burn down the empire you built to the ground in order to build a healthy, happy foundation and start all over, and starting over is scary, but and that's probably the darkest points in our lives when we are wiped out and we got to start over, man. It gets real, real scary. But that's that's the beauty in life is like, every time I've been burned by something, after the ashes settle, there's beautiful new growth. And you can see that in real life too, where fires have burned away, landscapes. There's beautiful new growth that comes from that. And, I have a tattoo on my chest. It's a charred heart that wears a crown. It's burnt by fire. And growing out of it are beautiful flowers blossoming out of it. And it covers my whole chest. And each one of those is a birth flower of somebody who has impacted my life or who's very near and dear to me. And it's just been a pattern in life that I've had to wake up to and stop fighting and go, okay, we're here. It sucks. It's scary. But man, what's like next month going to look like, or what's next year going to look like? Because if it's this tough right now, there's some great crap coming down the pipeline. So I'm ready to receive that. And just like and not to get biblical on people, but even if you're not a believer, there are some really great things said in the Bible that line up with life. And one of them is, it says, praise God, even, in your trials and tribulations, in your struggles and stuff. And I think that's the same thing. Like you have to remember that these struggles, there is beauty in them. And like if I wouldn't have went through what I went through as a kid, I wouldn't be the man I am right now. I wouldn't have the strength to persevere. I wouldn't have the strength to get out of my own head and get out of my own way, push myself aside and keep putting one foot in front of the other because I have these patterns in life that have shown me I can do it, or I've had these patterns of voices of people speaking into my world and speaking life into me. They're telling me I can do it. And so the pattern tells me that, so I'm going to run with it, right? So there's my patterns. But it's it's in those dark moments that I have to look for those patterns. So they kind of align, which is why I wanted to bring those two to you.
Absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to go find myself some lion blood. I'm not supposed to drink it biblically, so I'm probably just going, inject some. The Bible didn't say I couldn't inject lion blood into me because it's in the blood. And I'll tell you what, no matter what you're going through, you can relate to this. Go check them out right now. Jonathan Lee has brought us one of the greatest tunes you will ever hear, voiced the lyrics himself. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, check out Blood of Lions, their new single, Built for This Moment, out now everywhere. And you can also check them out on Spotify, YouTube. I personally enjoy Instagram, so I would go to Blood of Lions music, because I keep on wanting to say blood, Lion of Judah, all that stuff, because we're religious cats. But good sir, joking aside, in all seriousness, thank you so much. You've created some really, truly potent and beautiful music. You have a amazing story that just keeps on leveling up at every step. And I'm incredibly grateful for your time, for you to share that with me on the podcast.
John, it's been an honor, brother. Been an honor getting to chat with you, share life with you, share stories with you, and I look forward to more, my friend. Look forward to staying in contact, man, doing life together, and we'll do it again. Definitely do it again. Let's level up together, bro. Keep sporting, keep pushing.
I'll hold you to that when you open at the MSG.
Hey,
For
side stage, baby, side stage.
now I gotta be in the crowd, man. It's
Oh,
weird on side. If you're not on stage, that side stage is a weird getup, man. The music don't hit the same. You can
you're right.
stage. I mean, and it's weird too, because even if you're in the crowd side stage, you still get that hit of the amp. I don't know. I'm a weird dude.
Hey,
But
wherever you want to be, you got it, brother. That's my promise to you.
sir, I cannot wait to see you thrive. And everybody else, I reiterate, go check out Blood of Lions. Be smart, be mindful, rock on, and remember, you can do it. You got the support. As always, Ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.